right, so today we are going to talk about how to wholesale houses step 3. Step 3 is basically running the appointment, what to say on the appointment, and how to essentially close the deal on the appointment and get your first contract. So let's rewind. We already talked about how to identify houses in distress that we want to wholesale. That was step 1. We talked about driving for dollars and jotting down addresses in neighborhoods that you'd like to target, writing handwritten messages on sticky notes, and essentially building up your sales pipeline. Step 2, we talked about how to speak with sellers on the phone, how to uncover motivation. We talked a little bit about motivated seller's script, even though I hate to call it a script. I'm not a script guy. So it's really just a list of questions that we want to ask and try to make it as conversational as possible. So, and again, the end goal, always remember, we're trying to schedule an appointment with that seller so we can get in there, see the house, take pictures of the house, talk to the seller, ask more questions, see if it's a deal or not. So, step 3, again, this is the appointment. It might be a little scary running your first wholesaling appointment, but I promise you, it's really not that bad. Most sellers are very welcoming, and if anything, they're the ones who almost feel, in some ways, I don't want to say embarrassed, but that's kind of the word that's popping in my head here. You know, a lot of times when people accept an appointment from us or they're interested in hearing a cash offer, you know, it's because they're potentially in distress. They have something going on in their lives, maybe that's stressful. You know, their house needs repairs, their house is a mess, and they're embarrassed about it. I always try to tell people to, like, don't worry about that. We can see past the mess. You know, we have seen much worse, you know, that sort of thing. And we want them to feel comfortable showing us the house. And I usually say that, you know, hey, it's only going to take, you know, 10 to 15 minutes of your time. We're pretty quick. Just basically checking the condition of the house, the structure, the mechanicals, you know, so we can evaluate our repair budget and how much money we would spend on the house. So those are just some things that I say, you know, prior to the appointment or when I first get there. As far as dressing up, you don't need to go crazy and, you know, wear a suit or, you know, be super professional. I think it's fine if you want to wear, you know, a tucked-in shirt, nice pants. But I also think that you can get away with dressing down a little bit if it's, you know, summertime, or if it's warm. You know, shorts are okay. Just don't look like a scrub, right? You know, sweatpants might not be the best choice. You know, I'll dress casually, but I don't want to overdo it. When you get there, introduce yourself. I have business cards. If you're just starting out, you don't need business cards, so don't think that you got to go and order a bunch of business cards. But introduce yourself. If you don't have a company name, that's fine. Just say that you're local investors, you buy houses, you know, and you don't have an official business. That's no big deal. People don't really care. You're going to also ask them permission if it's okay if you take a couple of pictures. I should say more than a couple, but they almost always say yes. I think I've maybe had, you know, I've run hundreds and hundreds of appointments, and I've maybe had one person tell me no. So that just gives you permission to take photographs, and this is very important because we want to make sure we're taking good pictures. We want to make sure that we're hitting, you know, the right angles, because ultimately these pictures are what's going to sell you this deal to your cash buyers, assuming you get the contract. So pictures are extremely important. But on the appointment, I don't say a whole lot, you know. Initially, I just, you know, try to make it very informal. Let's walk through the house. You lead the way. You know, you show us around, and we'll check out. You know, I want to go through each room, take a quick picture. Some key areas or things to look for. You know, what type of flooring do they have it? And I would recommend taking notes, especially if you're just starting out too, to help remind you of, you know, what you're seeing. And you're gonna, if you have pictures, you can go back and refer to the pictures too. But you know, just the condition of the bathrooms, the condition of the kitchen. Windows are a big one. That can be a big expense if the house has a lot of old, you know, raggedy wood windows. Usually we like to factor in new windows throughout the house. When you're in the basement, I would check the foundation. Usually a lot of the older block foundation houses, that's if there are foundation issues, a lot of times it's obvious because you'll see large cracks in the blocks. So that's a red flag if you do see that. So check the foundation. It's going to take practice. I would suggest going out there with a contractor or somebody who knows what they're doing, maybe on your first few appointments, just so they can kind of educate you on what to look for. But I would check, you know, floor joists. You know, look for termite damage, especially if you're in a area where termites are more prevalent. You're going to look at the water heater, make sure that's in good condition. The furnace, you know, check the ductwork. We want to know, obviously, if the furnace is working, what type of furnace, and when was it last serviced. I think those are important. Electrical service. I always like to get a picture of the panel to show, you know, hey, is it a newer panel? Is it a 200 amp, 100 amp? Have they not touched that in years, and you still got the old knob and tube? You know, check for wiring and see if that's been upgraded, especially if it's an older home. Plumbing, you know, does it have a lot of the old copper plumbing, or is it the newer PEX? You know, make notes of that. And a lot of this you're going to be able to see in the basement. So the basement is a key area that we definitely want to take good notes and take some pictures and see what we're dealing with. And the rest of the house is really self-explanatory. You know, we're just checking condition of the walls, the floors, the kitchen, the appliances, the cabinets, you know, lighting, light fixtures. Again, I mentioned the windows. So again, just take very detailed notes. I know I said usually our meetings only last 10-15 minutes, but you know, when you at the beginning, you know, you might take a little longer than that, just making sure you're evaluating these properties. So, and really from there, I'm usually asking questions along the way. You know, how long have you owned the place for, if you haven't already discussed that. Anything that you didn't get to in that initial phone conversation, you can ask those questions during this meeting. So there's a lot of great questions. If you go to step 2, you go to my blog, you'll see all the questions there, and we encourage you to ask those to not only gather information about the house, but also we want to understand motivation. We want to understand why they're interested in an offer. I usually like to ask them, you know, assuming we present an offer that you're happy with and you accept, how quickly could you move? You know, is this like hey, I'm in a hurry, I need to sell in 2 weeks and I need the cash to go buy another house or to pay off my debt or whatever it is, or do they have time? Are they in no rush at all, right? So timeline is something we want to know. And then price. And I didn't do this when I first started. I was I guess too scared to ask, you know, if they had a number in mind, but that's actually exactly what I say at the end. And I usually like to do it at the end because hopefully I built some rapport during the meeting. You know, we've had a good conversation, and they hopefully trust me or like me a little bit enough to maybe kind of steer me in the right direction of what they're thinking. Because let's be honest, everybody has a number. Everybody has a number of what they think their house is worth or what they want to sell it for. So it's our job, or in this case your job, to try to get that number. So I just try to ask in the most polite, you know, almost not direct ways possible, like you know, hey Mr. Seller, did you have a number in mind that you'd like to sell the house for? And just stop and just see what they say. And I would say I usually get something out of them probably about 70% of the time. They'll give me something, and usually it's not a direct answer. Usually they'll kind of, you know, they'll start talking about, well, you know, we got an appraisal a couple years ago and this is what it was, or I talked to a realtor and they thought I could get this, but I know it's probably not worth that. So a lot of times they'll kind of talk you through what they're thinking, and that's great. That's they're, you know, and again, you're not going to get it every time. Sometimes they'll just, say, hey, you tell me, or they'll say, no, I haven't thought about it, I don't know, which isn't probably true. I'm sure they have, and I'm sure they have a number, or they have at least something. And some of them will say, hey, whatever the Zestimate says, that's what I want, right? Some people think the Zestimate is the be-all, end-all, so you have to deal with that sometimes. And the reason why we want to know is that helps us, right? Are we not even close? I mean, because if we're not close, then maybe it's not a deal. I'm still going to make an offer, because you never know. I can't tell you how many times they have given me a number, and I went ahead and just made an offer anyway, thinking that I have no chance. But sure enough, they call me the next day, hey, let's talk about that. So you just never know. Some people are really good at hiding their cards. So we want to get a number. If we can't, that's fine. We'll still make an offer, but it just kind of helps us. And if they give us a number that is low, or is lower than we thought, or something we can work with, I mean, hey, we might be able to get that deal signed on the spot. And we'll talk more about how to do that later on. I think to start out, I don't know that I would recommend trying to put something under contract during the first meeting, but certainly I think after you do a couple months of appointments, you'll be ready to do that. So at the end of the meeting, again, if we get the price, we want to just be polite. We'll say, hey, get back to you with that offer in 24 hours, 48 hours. Usually like to be fast, especially if I can tell there's some motivation. And that's it. That's usually how we do it. Like I said, just be yourself. Don't overdress. Ask questions. We want the seller talking as much as possible. So I think just asking questions, engaging them, trying to get them to open up as to motivation, price, those kind of things. That's what we want. So read the blog post, step 3. I'll provide some more information in there, and stay tuned for the next video.